But if we then talk about kind of like training the female athletes, so Jack, I'm going to kind of pull you in here. If we talk about kind of strength and power training, like from a female athlete perspective, should we be training those female players different to males, or kind of what is your philosophy around kind of strength and power training for your kind of female players at Everton particularly?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. So obviously it's quite a big question. There's lots of considerations to take into account when you're thinking about strength and power training. But I think one thing, particularly in a football context, there's probably a bit of a stigma around strength training, particularly around maybe players becoming slower or too bulky. Maybe I think with female athletes, that's maybe particularly prevalent. I would say that in my experience working with female athletes, it's actually very difficult to get a lot of muscle on a female athlete. I think that's not necessarily a problem. And then I'd probably say as well, in my time working in the Women's Super League, the physical demands of the sport have really increased. Obviously, they've been there for a bit longer in the male game, but I think those physical demands really increasing puts a bigger emphasis on the need for strength, speed, power, and the physical qualities that sort of underpin all those things. I'd also say around some of the injury profiles that we maybe talk about a little bit later, but with female athletes being a little bit more predisposed to like structural joint, ligament, tendon injuries, that's probably an even greater need to load those structures. And then I suppose some of the considerations, I think around maybe female athletes specifically, I think you've got to be aware of body type in your exercise selection. Not to say that certain body types can't do certain exercises, but you've got to be aware of their limitations. Like I definitely in my coaching put a big emphasis on technique first, technique before load. And then maybe another consideration on top of that with female athletes is also pushing them to load and to progressive overload, because obviously that's key in the performance side of increased load, increasing performance, increasing strength and power. I'd also probably say more from a football context and a female athlete context, there's plenty of opportunities away from that kind of classic gym setting. If athletes are less comfortable in that setting, there's plenty of opportunities out on the pitch to build strength qualities, whether that be jumping and landing qualities, whether that be sprinting at high velocities or changing direction, building those technical competencies on the field as well. So maybe if an athlete's a little bit less inclined to getting in the gym and lifting really heavy weights, there's also things we can do on the pitch as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would say over the last few years, I think prior to that, the players I worked with in the US were not keen supportive to lift heavy, but again, it was like a education process of the importance and the why, and then they did kind of buy into it the last couple of years, and then seen some kind of good progress kind of in their development. Guy, what about you kind of at Charlton? Have you
Yeah, I think obviously without disrespect to my employers, we are the smaller club here. Obviously we are part-time, but from what I find is that athletes tend to, when they start with us, have a lower training age. So, a lot of assumptions are made with, athletes that they should be able to do cleans and stuff like that. But what we find is sometimes we have to strip that right back down. We started a player recently, and, their gym exposure was pretty much nothing. They're quite comfortable running, but sometimes dispelling myths and overcoming those simple barriers of getting them into the gym and making them see that link of, strength and power will correlate to football. And I feel like, at least around my level, I feel that the athletes still need that little bit of buy-in, and they need to